Welcome to the Pitwall Panic podcast. Today we are going to bring you a fun episode, in my opinion, and I might make some George Russell fans upset. Um, I think that this weekend might have shown that he might be a little bit of, for lack of better words, a fraud for what he portrayed himself at the beginning of the season, but we'll get into that. We'll see just how upset I end up making George Russell fans. Um, that being said, let's go over some stuff here. Welcome again to the Pitwall Panic podcast. You can join us in Discord where we have wonderful conversations about the race weekends. We have wonderful conversations on our expectations for the races and just what we think is going to happen throughout the season, and just a good old fun time. You can follow us on TikTok, where I try to keep the up to date news rolling and shorts there, and YouTube shorts, and then go into deeper discussion on the news within the podcast. Then you can also follow us on Twitter, where I will try to get you some good stuff out there as well. With that being said, we'll get into the podcast and get started. So, like I said, I think, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. We'll get into the news first. The first thing is the ADUO results have come out before Monaco, and I think they surprised most people. The strongest power unit on the grid is Red Bull, and I don't know who would have seen that coming. That says a lot about the aerodynamics of the car and the handling of that car. If they have the strongest power unit on the grid and they are as slow as they are, there's a problem. And I don't know if that's a good issue or a bad issue if you have to choose on having lower performance in the engine or lower aerodynamic. I don't know which one would be easier to fix. Y'all can be the judge of that and let me know what y'all think in the comments. It's just it really shows that this car is lacking somewhere if they are struggling this badly. I mean, it's taken everything Max and Hadjar can do to end up in the fight for the podium, and I think that is, nothing short of just sad if this is the case with the engine. Um, One second, guys. And Red Bull, or not Red Bull, Mercedes is 2% or right there at 2% underpowered compared to Red Bull, and every other constructor on the grid is 4% or more. Now that's saying something. And Ferrari being over 4% means that they will get 2 upgrades this year, and then they'll get 2 upgrades next year. If you're Mercedes or Red Bull, that's bad. That's really bad for Red Bull, because that means that Mercedes gets upgrades and Ferrari gets 2 upgrades, and Red Bull can barely keep up with them with no upgrades. So what is Red Bull gonna do? It's a real bad time to be Red Bull. They have to figure that chassis out. Now, Max looked really good in Canada, and Max looked really good in Monaco up until the start, and we'll get more into that. I feel really bad for Max. Even Hadjar was having issues. So, I mean, they have these glimmers of good time, but they just cannot put it together, it doesn't seem like. Then the other aspect of this is, do we think Toto made all this bolstering and all this time and saying, "Oh, we don't need to let everybody have the ADUO," and playing leapfrog. But then I guarantee you, he's gonna take the ADUO. He's not gonna make a big fuss about it because now he's the one getting to use it. I guarantee we will not hear another word out of Toto. Now, I could be wrong, and if that's the case, let me know what you think after you watch this or whatever it may be. I just, I think it's very funny at how open he was against the ADUO, and now he's going to be benefiting from it, and they're going to use it. They're only going to get one upgrade, but they're going to use it, and that also I think helps Williams out because that means that beforehand it was going to be Mercedes, McLaren, Williams, and Alpine that weren't going to be getting engine upgrades. And now all of them are going to. So the Alpine has looked really good and it's going to continue to look good because it's going to get upgrades. That's the one team I was kind of sad for, I think, in this whole situation, simply because they have been working their butts off to perform and do so much better than they did last season. And to be held back by that would have been devastating and sad to see. I think that if they get an engine upgrade also to keep up, we could end up seeing both Gasly and Colapinto potentially sneak in on a podium at some point. It wouldn't surprise me if it happened. They both looked really good this season. I mean, they haven't fought for any podiums, but neither has Hadjar, and he snuck onto one today. And there's plenty of tracks where incidents like Monaco, where stuff gets chaotic, happens. I mean, you look at Brazil last year, and in the rain, it was just a try to finish the race and see what happens kind of situation. And the year before that, the same thing in Brazil, and we ended up seeing both Ocon and Gasly on the podium. And I think either one of them won or Max won, and just both of them were on the podium. I mean, there's still opportunities for that. Uh, it it'll be interesting to see how it shakes it up. Now to roll in, continuing talking engine talk and power unit talk. There's new testing regulations that rolled out for Monaco in Monaco, where they're now testing. They talked about this a while back. Now they're doing it. There's testing on the engines at ambient temperature and running temp, which I think was like 130 130 degrees. I don't know if it's Fahrenheit or Celsius. It had to be Fahrenheit. I think Celsius would be way too hot. I don't know what that would be. Um, and if your compression ratio goes to anything above 16.1, in Mercedes' case, the 18.1, then it's an automatic DSQ, whether it's at ambient temp or hot running temp. So, it didn't seem to hurt Mercedes at Monaco today, but Monaco is a low speed track, anyways. So, how will it play out? We don't know yet because I don't think Monaco is a good test for that. I think Barcelona will be the big tell on how much Mercedes has been relying on that extra compression ratio. Um, Kimi looked good today, but what happens when you need more power and you don't have it because you're not breaking rules to get 18:1 compression ratio? And I know everybody can say, "Oh, it's a loophole." No, that wasn't a loophole. I've said it once. I'll say it again. The rule said it's 16:1 compression ratio. That's the rule. Just because you break the rule after testing does not make it a loophole. It means you're cheating and not getting caught. There's a difference. Now, if they do it, they'll get caught. And if they get caught, they'll get a DSQ. So if it's a loophole, there shouldn't be a DSQ involved. Just saying. But that's neither here nor there. I think Barcelona is going to be the big tell. And we're going to find out really where Mercedes is going to shake out in this situation. Now, as far as today goes, Kimi won Monaco by like a landslide. But by doing this, he breaks the record that Lewis Hamilton set for the most wins in a row after your first win. So consecutive win, the first run of your trying to think of how to word this. Your consecutive wins in a row for the first stint of wins. Um, so this would put him at what, 4 in a row, and Lewis's was 3, I think. So that's an amazing feat. I know a lot of people wanted Lewis to keep his, but that shows the next generation is going to be good, and we're going to continue to see good drivers coming. Is it sad to see Lewis's record broken? Yes, but I cannot remember what athlete said it. Records are meant to be broken. Records are not meant to be held forever. And so seeing that means that we will have the next generation continuing. I mean, is anybody keeping up with Kimi? No, but we had Kimi on the win the race. We had Isaac Hadjar on a podium, and I think it's just a matter of time for him to win a race. We've seen a lot of good stuff out of Oliver Behrman. Like, the next generation of racing is still going to be really good. We're not going to have just slop in the cars. And I think that's amazing. And I know people are going to say, well, it's the car. We might have us a guest pop in for 20 minutes here, guys. Hold on one second. I'm gonna shrink us here for a second and bring him in. Well, here's what I'll do. I'll just throw him in the voice call. One second, guys. Sorry for this. This is kind of a spur of the moment situation here. While he's getting in the call, we had picking back up. People are gonna say, "Well, it's the car. It's the car." Um, and before anybody can really say that, what'd George do? He's in the same car. Is Kimi extracting more out of this car, or is the car that good and George is just that bad? Hold on one second, SJ. Let me turn on the audio. All right, we're good. Can you hear me? Let me make sure I can hear you. Oh, wait, I turned you down. That's what the issue is. All
Can you hear me?
right. Yeah, I can hear you. All right, everybody. We got SJ back on, and he was on last week. I guess I'll ask you this: is it a testament to Kimi Antonelli's ability, or is it more a sign of George's weakness on the fact that they're in the same car, but Kimi is doing so much better than George?
It's hard to say because like I think in the last few weeks he's become quite arrogant. Um, you're young, you're 19, you're winning races, you're leading the championship, but it's a long race, it's a long season, and yes, he had the pace yesterday, but we already know that the Mercedes is the fastest car anyway, so that's that's there's nothing new there. Would have been this very, very similar situation if Max was in the race last night, because you have to pay some quality, and that
Yeah,
Red Bull is not up to the same standards as that Mercedes. So you could say he's probably a little bit fortunate of who's around him at the moment on the grid.
I'd argue opposite of that. I think Red Bull, once they figure out the aero, I know earlier in the podcast I mentioned the ADO results came out. I don't know if you were watching at that moment, and Red Bull has the strongest power unit on the grid. If they can figure out the aero, and you have somebody like Max Verstappen with his experience chasing down Kimi, could we see a situation like last year where he chased down both McLaren drivers and almost won the championship? Does that make sense? Uh, like I think it's a real possibility that we could end up seeing that happen. I like, I don't know. It's a weird situation because now Kimi is 66 points in the lead of the championship from second place, and Max is in P7 for drivers. So it's a situation to where like he's got a bigger margin than Oscar had last year, but this is Formula One, and we have some of the greatest of all time on this track, and anything can happen at any given time, and who knows? And with the ADUO kicking in, and with the new testing regulations kicking in, we don't know how long Kimi can hold on to the advantages that Mercedes has given him. I think time will tell. I kind of had the same thoughts you had, SJ, on he's kind of been a little arrogant, been a little cocky. Was to a degree. I think he's been really humble compared to what some people would have been. And he's made several mistakes throughout the season, and I just knew he was going to make those mistakes at Monaco, and making those kind of mistakes punishes you at Monaco. You don't just walk away from that. And he kind of
No,
surprised me.
agreed.
Do what?
Agreed. I do agree. I do agree. I think he's in a very, very good good form, but can he keep it going? Russell, I think last night was a bit unfortunate. I think he was very I think if it's a completely different track, with obviously he overtakes Hadjar and tries to push on and maybe look at a podium, but due to a Monaco, no way to overtake. And then obviously Mercedes having a Ferrari strategy there, not deciding to get him to serve the penalty, cost him points. So
Ah,
that's something that Mercedes is going to definitely learn from moving forward,
I
because
I don't
that's
know.
something that. Go on.
I don't know that was a Mercedes not choosing to serve the penalty, because if you watch closely, the right tire guy waits a second. The left side just jumps right in. He's like, "Oh, he's going. We got to go." So I
No,
don't.
beforehand, he
Oh, I see
gets
what you're
on the
saying.
mic.
I see what you're
He
saying.
gets on the mic and he asks them what we're doing. And there's a long pause. No one says anything.
Yeah.
Then he comes into the pits and then they make a decision. It's like, well, if you're getting team engineer, you know what's going on. He's coming into the pits. We serve it. We move on. No communication. Just piss poor. Really, it's piss poor, and that's something they should have known, because they've read obviously the rule book. They've read the FIA regulations. They know that you got to serve it. So and that's cost him, and that has cost them big points, because how that race ended up finishing, he could have been in some good points, and then the day he just finished P13.
Yeah.
So
No, I agree.
just a waste of time.
Was it P13 or P14?
P13 because Hulkenberg got a 10
That's
second.
right. I forgot about that. Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like George pumped himself up, and everybody pumped him up, saying he was going to be the next champion. This was his year, this, that, and the third, and he has just fallen flat on his face. And many of the George fans will be like, well, in Canada the car failed him. In Japan he had issues with the floor, and this, that, and the third, and the other. Like, they can't just accept that George is not the driver that everybody thought he was. Like, yes, he had issues in Japan. He had issues in or he didn't have issues in qualifying. He just failed in qualifying. Or not qualifying. He had issues off the start. Like, there was an issue that ended up getting him back there. He didn't have that issue of the car going into the wrong mode until the end of the race. But he was already back there before that issue kicked in. Like, there's been several instances like that George has put himself in the situation before the issues arose. And I just don't think. Okay, I'm gonna bring something up. This was gonna come out later in the podcast, but we're gonna go ahead and hash it out now because I know you said you only had like 20 minutes. Toto Wolff, if you remember, and they went more into this in Drive to Survive, but they also talked about it a little bit beforehand, I think. When Lewis said, "I'm leaving Mercedes and going to Ferrari," he was concerned if George could be the number one and a leader. And it's almost like, well, why would you think that? He's been in the sport for a while. He hasn't done terrible. I mean, he hasn't been outstanding by any records, but he hasn't been terrible. And I think this season is showing why. I wondered if there's like a mentality issue that Toto saw, if there was a issue that he was concerned about with skill that was kind of hidden because you're teammates with Lewis. Like what the issue may have been, I think Toto saw something. And everybody said, see, he did good last season. And people forget last season was Kimmy's rookie year. And what happened at the end of the season? Kimmy came alive and was really taking it to George, in all honesty. And now look at this season. Do you think there was something there that Toto saw, or do you think I'm just looking too deeply into this?
I think obviously with his experience, he was obviously a very good driver in F2. He's young. He's got his whole life ahead of him. You've got a lot of drivers, that mid 27, 30, 32 mark. Lewis is getting on. Lewis has been around for a while. Alonso is getting on. Hulkenberg's getting on. The likes of Beerman, the likes of Bordaletto, and obviously Antonelli. Charles has just signed an extension. So they're all young drivers. So he's obviously got to see young talent. I think it's the car. I think the car is just far superior. And to be honest with you, you could see that just on the safety car restart, just at the end with 7 laps to go. You could see that. You could see how much pace that he had over a 7-time world champion who's in good form. Don't get me wrong. Lewis Hamilton this season is in good form. He feels comfortable with the car. He's happy. But there's no performance there. They are
There's no
miles
power.
away from. Yeah, there's nothing. He was 7 seconds in 4 laps behind Antonelli. 7 seconds at Monaco.
Yeah.
Like that's incredible.
Well, so
It just. Yeah, I
let
don't
me
know.
rephrase that question. What the part that I was focusing on is, do you think there's something that Toto sees that everybody else has overlooked in George?
Oh, sorry, I misread. I think I think you go back to Williams. He was the upcoming star in that team, and I think he wanted a bigger move because he wanted to score points. Now he's gone to Mercedes. He's up there. He's scoring points. He's won races. So yeah, I think Toto did see that. It's the same with what Williams saw with Sainz. But Science has gone the other way because of the car. So if the car's not right, the driver's not going to be able to perform. And Mercedes have a car for George and Antonelli to perform. We've seen it. We saw it at Canada. Yes, he was unfortunate with the issue. We saw it earlier on in the season as well. And obviously, Monaco, he did struggle for pace, but he was still up there. He would have probably been fighting Ferrari and Charles and Lewis. So I think, yes, I think you have these moments. You have these lull moments where you have issues. Look at Lando. Lando, two races, two DNFs, two power units, two problems.
Yeah,
Now we're
that's
talking about a world champion.
to me
We're
that's a
talking a
little
world champion
different
last
though.
season.
And the reason I say that's a little different is
Well,
his is car failure.
yeah, but Russell had car failure at Canada.
I mean, that's true. That's
So they're
true.
all having failures with these cars, with these new cars, new regs and everything. So they're still not 100% sustainable. Antonelli has a car that's sustainable. George has a car that's sustainable for the time being. But can George get into a form where he's putting pressure on Antonelli? Monaco, very difficult, can't overtake. You qualify P1, you normally win the race, unless you get the
Something
move done into
happens.
turn one, right?
Yeah.
So Catalunya next week, different. Will be a bit more of an eye opener to see what happens, to see if Anthony does have the pace this whole season.
Yeah. No, I agree. Now, also, one other thing I wanted to get your take on, because I am so tired of every time I get on social media seeing this. Um, as soon as Hadjar went out, in FP1 because he hit a wall. You get on social media and everybody's like, "Oh, they're gonna replace Hadjar now. Oh, Hadjar's just
No,
not cut out for Red Bull. Oh, this, that, and the third." But then
nah,
Australia, he's killing it until the car fails him. Canada, he takes fifth place. Today, with a car that he's complaining about having issues with first gear at a low speed track, that's a major deal. He ends up on the podium, and it's crickets. Like, at what point do you think, like, what does Hadjar have to do for people to stop coming after him?
nothing. They just need to shut up
Oh, I agree.
because
It's so frustrating.
yesterday, for me, I don't know if it actually came through that he got driver of the day, but 100% just deserved driver of the day yesterday.
I think Kimmy got it.
Apart from Antonelli's dominance, no, I don't agree with that. Hadjar had problems from the get-go, lost the teammate early on with Max's issues, which was unfortunate. It was a bit of a downer. I don't think a lot of people wanted to watch it because I think Max would have given Antonelli a bit of a run for his money yesterday,
I agree.
especially when you're still qualifying. So when having a team out, that puts a little bit of a doubt in your mind because you need to be getting the other car across the line to score points. He has a car which he's got issues with. Lando had issues. Unfortunately, he couldn't continue. Hadjar looked like he couldn't continue, but he managed it. He was slow. And even though Russell overtook him, he still finished above Russell and on the podium after all the issues he had yesterday and had done an absolutely fantastic job, even though he knew he didn't have the pace.
And
So,
I think it says
top
a
job.
lot about
Top, top,
Hadjar
top job.
because a lot of more experienced drivers would have been more panicked, I feel like. He stayed calm, he dealt with the car that he had, and he drove it. And he drove it good. Because he was not as experienced as everybody else. This is only his second race at Monaco in an F1 car. And he defended the main points of attack better than some experienced drivers do while not having the power. Because if he
But he
doesn't,
qualified top five.
exactly. And
Yeah. So where was Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda at that point when they got in the car? Did they
don't don't
qualify top five?
don't attack Yuki like that. That hurts my feelings.
Well, they weren't. But
Yeah,
they
no, I
weren't.
agree. I agree.
And Red Bull are ruthless. I've said this so many years. When Christian Horner was in charge, they're ruthless. If you do not perform, you are out.
Now,
It's that simple, and that is the same with the F1 sport. So this is a guy that has come from PSGL sim racing, right? Is now an F1 driver, right, in the biggest motorsport in the world, right? He's now got a podium. He's scored points. He's outscored the realm of Max, unfortunately, with the DNF, and he scored big points for Red Bull, and he's done it with a broken car. So the haters, the rage baiters, whatever you want to call them out there, they can shut up because end of the
yeah,
day, he's done his job. He's got a podium,
I,
and he's outdone Russell, he's outdone Norris, he's outdone Piastri,
I,
he's
I
outdone
think
Charles.
I think at this point it's just the thing to do to hate on the second seat. And it's ridiculous. It's not fair to him. He's in his second season and outdoing many veterans of the sport in a car that is arguably extremely, extremely hard to handle. We have
You're
clearly
always going to
seen,
be a shadow, though.
well,
You're always going to be a shadow
yeah,
in
you're
in
going
a
to be
Red
a
Bull.
shadow of Max. I agree with that. But to simply go into, they're going to kick him out of the car, they're going to kick him out of the car, and ignore the results that he has given is like, I just don't understand why the community has become so toxic in recent times. It's ridiculous, quite frankly. And good on Isaac Hadjar for kind of saying, "You think that? Watch this." Ends up on the podium.
Yeah, yeah. Prove him wrong. Prove him wrong.
And
Because
I,
he's outdone other people. He's outdone other people. The thing is now, can he go into Catalonia and do the same?
yeah,
That's the problem. You see, it's about right when you're finishing in a
consistency.
position which is great. Yeah, you need that consistency. But
Because
the thing is, also gives them great morale. It gives them great motivation as well. Antonelli's on on Mount Everest at the moment. Like, you know, he's
Yeah,
65 points, 68 points in front. You know, it's giving him great motivation. But as soon as someone starts to test him, that's when he'll struggle because his experience is not there.
yeah, and I agree with that. And I think my thing is consistency is almost better than being a first place, maybe one race a year kind of driver. And that's always been one of my biggest complaints with Sainz. Can he win races? Yes. Is he consistent? No. I feel like in
Is
24,
he in the wrong team?
if do it.
Is he in the wrong team? Yes.
Well, right now, yes. I'm talking about even when he was at Ferrari. You know, in 24, he won a few races. Yes, the car was good in 24. Did some of their
Yep.
strategies pan out? No, but I mean, does every team's strategies always pan out? No. He started off
Yep.
strong at the beginning of that season, and he fell off in the middle part, and then he got strong again later in the season. But at that point, it was too late. And
Yep.
that has always been my problem with Signs is his lack of consistency. Are we going to see that in Hajar? It's too early to really say.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
But as long as he can keep out of that inconsistency, I think he's going to be good. I think that Red Bull's going to hold on to him as long as they can because you don't want Max to decide to retire because he's been throwing that around. And then who do you have if you get rid of Hajar and then Max is gone? You have Liam Lawson that you already put out of the seat once. You have Lindblad, who's not been doing bad, but I don't think it's right to take a guy in the situation of coming into F1 and throwing him into one of the most pressured seats on the grid and expecting him to thrive. I mean, you look at what happened with Lawson when you did that. Do you put Yuki back in the seat? Is he going to want to go back into the seat though after the way he's been treated? Like you kind of put yourself in a bad spot if you're Red Bull.
Yep. Yep. And there's decisions that have to be made, you know. And end of the day, drivers do change. Upcoming drivers come through F2. Not 9 times out of 10 don't get a full-time seat, don't get an F1 seat straight away, become as a reserve driver, have an opportunity in practice to show what they've got, and that's it. You know, unless the driver gets ill or anything else, then they get an opportunity. You know, and if you're looking at who's on the chopping block really at the moment, you'd say there's a few.
Yeah,
You'd say there's a few out there. You know, Valtteri's not really performed.
I don't.
Checker was unfortunate not to get the 10 P10 yesterday due to a pen, so he lost that. Alonso's got it. The Aston Martin car's not there. Stroll needs to go. Um,
Absolutely.
Behrman's not had a good season. Haas have died off a little bit. Alpine have done fantastic. You know, Gasly was fantastic last night. Bit silly with the speeding in the pit lane. So there's a few drivers that have got a bit of a question mark. And the thing is you're talking about people looking at Hadjar, and it's like, well, you need to be looking at Ocon. You need to be looking at
Right.
the Cadillac team. You know, not really be focusing on that because you know they're the drivers that aren't performing. You know, Ollie
Exactly.
Behrman last season was fantastic. This season, you know, very very frustrated. I don't think that's the right team. How do I put it? I don't think they're the right teammates together.
Yeah,
I think it's another Ocon and Gasly situation there.
I agree.
Um, so yeah, I and Cadillac to me, you know, it was unfortunate last night with Perez. They've got two very very experienced drivers, but the car's nowhere near.
That car just falls
You
apart
give
every
them a
day.
yeah, but you give them a car to the situation of like Ferrari or Mercedes, then they're in the top 5, top 10 every week.
Yeah.
But because it's a brand new car into the sport, they're just they're just progressing. It's development,
This
you
car
know.
caught on
And
fire
by
3 times this weekend.
yeah, that's what I mean. You know, so it, you're probably around 15. You might see the Cadillac now starting to improve and go from I don't know P13 to P15 to maybe P10, P11, maybe. But that might take
That's gonna take
weeks and weeks
time.
and weeks or months. Do you know?
Yeah.
So and you've got to give them their dues. They're new into the sport. They're new. They're understanding it. You know. So yeah,
They had a shot
I
at
think we knew that
points.
was going to happen.
They had a shot without. And if you think
Yeah,
about it, it's all on Perez on why they didn't get the points. Perez ran a fantastic race, but he got a penalty at the beginning of the race for being outside of the starting position. And then he got a penalty on the
yeah.
restart for being outside of the starting position. He got the same penalty
Well, it's
twice.
2 weeks in a row. 2 weeks in a row, he's actually been racing quite well. Canada, he done well in the sprint, and also in Monaco as well.
Yeah,
But just like you said yesterday, I think stupidity to some of the penalties. Speeding in the pit lane. Like, what is that all about? I don't know. The amount of penalties we saw yesterday was just ridiculous.
there was 11
So
total penalties in that race at Monaco.
no, just
We had
silly, just
we
silly.
had Lewis, George, Oscar, Franco, and Pierre get speeding in the pit violations. And then Pierre Gasly got a second one with the safety car speeding in the pit. Then we had Lance Stroll get a track limits. We had Nico Hulkenberg get a collision for hitting signs. We had Sergio Perez twice out of position. We had George Russell, who got speeding in the pits, then stopped for his pit. And to clarify the rules here, for those that don't know, if you're new to the sport or just don't understand this, whenever you have, say, a 5 or 10 second penalty on you and you stop in the pits, they cannot touch you for that 5 to 10 seconds. If they do, it is a drive through penalty because it escalates the penalty. And that's what happened to George. He had the 5 second and they went right into working on the car instead of, serving the penalty. So he got two penalties there. Like there was just penalties left and right. So yeah, continuing like what you said, like I think this is the only race I've ever seen with this many penalties. Can you think of another
Yeah,
one?
not this season.
I can't think of one in recent years, honestly. Now, I have a question I know you can go down the rabbit hole on, but I'm gonna ask it anyways. Um, and I made a TikTok about this already. So if y'all want to go comment on the TikTok, feel free to do. So, who do you think took the biggest L this weekend? I mean, you look at
Russell.
McLaren's qualifying, that was terrible. Lando went out with, what was it, power unit issues. Lance Stroll ended up in a wall. Leclerc ended up in a wall. The favorites to go into this, and Lewis still didn't win it, even though he was the last Ferrari. George looked atrocious. Like, who do you think took the worst
Oh,
of this
biggest
weekend?
L.
Yeah,
Charles. Charles.
Charles. Yeah, I kind of unfortunately
Yeah,
agree. It hurt
without
my
a doubt.
feelings to see that.
Without a doubt. He was catching Lewis before the safety car restart,
Now,
and Lewis had the 5 second time penalty as well. But then he served it. I think he served it, if I
he
remember.
served it during the safety car.
Yeah. So, and Charles was catching him in that situation. I think they would have done the switch maybe, and I think Charles would have been able to push. Would have. Well, I don't know if he'd been able to compete with Antonelli, but I think he would have. I
I
think he would have been a
think
lot quicker than Lewis because
in
that's
a
his track, that's his home track.
in a
So
hypothetical world where somebody else hits that wall and they start up on the line with a standing start, Charles beats Kimmy off the line,
I don't
and
know.
Charles
I don't
potentially
know.
wins
I
that
don't
race.
know.
Just
Maybe, maybe,
Charles is one of the best starting drivers on the grid, and has been. That's
maybe.
like his two major things is being one of the best qualifiers on the grid and being one of the best starters on the grid.
I think it's high insight. I think
And it is, it
because
is. I
Antonelli was pure dominant.
I think my biggest L for the week was also Charles. He had so much pace. Well, actually, I take that back. My biggest L of the week is Ferrari. And the reason I say that and not Charles is because, one, to me, they did Charles wrong on that pit strategy. Granted, it didn't matter. But forcing him to do the double stack and then you have to sit there and basically serve a 5 second penalty because Lewis is serving the 5 second penalty and you're behind him. Like, to me, that was kind of wrong. Um, and then they had braking issues all weekend. They know there's an issue. They have a fix for the issue. Charles just was not comfortable on a track that is that difficult, throwing on a new braking system he hasn't driven yet, which I can understand.
But he doesn't seem happy. Like, I don't understand. Like, I've just heard the
Yeah,
news
that
he
part I
sold
don't
a
understand.
I don't understand it. He sold a multi-extension deal, but when you listen to his interview, he's not happy. So it's like I don't understand why you've just signed a new deal to extend to a team you're not happy at. I'm a bit confused
I think it
because you could
comes
hear it.
I think it comes down to his connection with Fred. He knows this car can be good. He knows what Fred can do. He's been with Fred his almost his entire career in F1 because Fred was at Alfa Romeo when he was at Alfa Romeo. And then he went to Ferrari and Bonotto was there for like a season, maybe 2 seasons, something like that. And then Fred came in and took over while Charles was there. There's only been a handful
Yeah,
of
but it's not
seasons.
Fred. Not, I don't agree with that. It's not Fred. The only person that has to blame that whole weekend is Charles.
Oh no, I agree. No,
Like
I agree.
I,
But I think
I
that's
watched
why he
this
did the extension.
qualifying. I watched this qualifying, right? He didn't set a time. He was P10, right? In Q3. He then takes P1 and he absolutely commits through the swimming pool. I don't know if you've seen it. It is
Hmm.
incredible. The amount of speed that he travels through that is just incredible. And you've seen the cars, they were oversteering, they were understeering, they were doing all sorts, right? So he gets the pole, right? He then has another shot, as Brundle said. He has another go to do a cool down lap and good go again, right? He goes again and he fucks it into the wall,
Yeah, but at the same
right?
time, you think about it, the pressure, the lap that Kimmy and Max both had down, Charles had to push that car so hard that he knew that the slightest mistake put him in a wall because you can't play it safe and expect to take pole in that situation.
Nope, agreed. But it's his home race. He knows how to race that track. He's probably the favourite to probably take P1, right? He doesn't. He makes a mistake. You know that, like they said, that they struggled in Q1, Q2. Then Lewis had to change his whole balance of his car in Q3, which is very unusual. Um, Charles struggled in Q3. He was sitting at P10. He made a mistake early on in his third stint. He then had another go. He had another go again, which would have made the track even warmer, and he would have, the times would have been different, and he would have taken pole. I guarantee it. The only reason that Max didn't take pole is because he made the mistake. He was 2.5 tenths quicker than anyone in Sector 1.
Yeah, it was insane.
Anyone, right? And he made that mistake in Sector 2. And he made the mistake at the end in sector in the final corner where the problem was with the track. So
No,
he
I
would have
mean I
taken it,
agree.
you
I
know.
agree.
So I think Charles would have took it because I know, he knows where to commit on that race, and he's done the same thing again. He's gone too much. He's hit the wall. He's taken himself out, and luckily he set a time, and then he done the same thing in the race.
Well,
So
the thing in the race is a little different in my opinion because if you watch, he he's sliding obviously. There's no smoke, so he didn't lock up the brakes. But if you look at the car, his wheels are turned and the car's just not gripping. Like as a driver, there's nothing else you can do in that situation. What are you going to do?
no,
Floor it and then
agreed,
try to kick the back end around? Then you're going to cook your
agreed.
tires. So like there was really nothing he could do. But I do get what you're saying at the same time. Um, it's just a frustrating situation for Charles. As a Charles Leclerc fan, it is devastating as well. Um,
He's his own worst enemy. If you've ever heard that saying, he's
oh
his
yeah,
own worst enemy.
there's a lot of
The
times I
only
agree.
reason he's not doing well, yeah, he's the only reason he's not doing well is because of himself, and I think that's the reason as well. I think Charles Leclerc is a fantastic driver. Do I
If he
think he's
gets out
going to
of
win
his
a
way,
championship with Ferrari? Sorry.
I said he's a fantastic driver when he gets out of his own way.
Yeah, but the question that's been asking and has been asked of him is he going to win a championship in Ferrari? And the answer is no,
I disagree with that. I think he can.
no.
I don't think it'll be this year necessarily, but I think there's a potential if they give him a car like he had in 24 and he hooks everything up the way that he can win a championship.
Charles needs a new team.
I don't know. We can agree to disagree on that because I see the passion that he has at Ferrari and would he have that passion anywhere else? this was the team he dreamed about going to when he was a kid. So like, would he have that same passion somewhere else to push him to be better?
They haven't got the car.
I
They
mean,
haven't got the car. That's
that's
the
fair.
problem.
I don't know. Time will tell. I mean, a lot of people also, and in the same regard, and I know this is slightly different. A lot of people said that Lewis needed to retire after 2021, and then a lot of people said that Ferrari made a mistake taking him over Sainz. But then you look at the season, and he's been on podium after podium after podium. He's been second 2 weeks in a row. Like, he's really hitting on all cylinders right now. I think that's just what
Oh
it's going
yeah,
to take
without
for
doubt.
Charles.
Yeah, I think if you were looking at the two drivers at the moment, and if you listen to the two interviews between the two drivers, they're completely different interviews. One's very, very negative, one's positive, but one's a bit of a balance. And if you look at Lewis at the moment, he is the better driver, without a doubt.
Yeah,
But if you're looking at the comparison between him and Antonelli, you would turn around and say Lewis Hamilton's washed.
yeah,
Because he can't catch him. But then again, he's not washed. It's down to the car. It's the same with Red Bull for dominating years and years and years. It's this whole new regulations thing, and unfortunately, Mercedes have got their finger on the button, and they've done it, and they've done very, very well at it. Ferrari have a second. McLaren are probably not far behind. But I thought Piastri was fantastic last night. I thought he did really, really good. Didn't basically was driving on his own. Um, and I think Alpine are the other team, and I think not far behind, probably them in between is Red Bull, and then the rest of them are just all balanced out. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And it's like each track is going to change it up. The question will be is when the upgrades come down into it and the development come down to it, who's going to be able to have the slight gap, because we're going back, and when we were looking at Canada, Mercedes didn't have none of their upgrades, or the week before Miami, sorry, they didn't have none of their upgrades, and they still won the race.
yeah. No, I agree.
So they're incredible at the moment without upgrades, and you'll probably see a few upgrades going into Catalonia, but there'll be a little bit of a gap probably. But then Mercedes are the ones to beat,
Yeah,
and that's the problem at the
I
moment.
think the biggest change is going to be when ADUO um, upgrades kick in, because then you're messing with the engine. If you're looking at Ferrari, aerodynamically speaking, they have one of the best cars on the track, and we've talked about that last week. So you give them more power,
Yep, agreed.
and that gets a lot more interesting. They're also one of the most reliable cars on the track. Charles DNF'd, and arguably you could say it was car failure because again, what was he supposed to do in that situation? Um,
Track issue, I'd say. I
well,
wouldn't say it's
yeah,
car failure. I'd say it's a track.
yeah, but what I'm getting at is it wasn't really the driver's fault in this situation. So it's not like it's a
No.
DNF because he just screwed up somewhere and put himself in the wall. This is the first DNF that Ferrari has had all season. And then you start looking at it. Stroll had, his DNF where he locked up, ended up in the wall. But Aston Martin's been riddled with technical issues. Max had his second DNF due to car failure of the season, and Red Bull's had three if you count Hadjar's in Australia, almost a fourth with Hadjar in Monaco. Norris had his third race where he didn't cross the finish line, where he's had two DNFs due to car failure and a DNS due to car reliability. Bottas, Cadillac's been a walking time bomb at every single race. He's had two DNFs. Perez has had a DNF, so Cadillac's at the third. Behrman's had two DNFs this season. One due to car failure, one due to regulation that was just terrible that they have since tried to fix. These regulations have made reliability seem like an absolute joke. I mean, how many has Mercedes
Yep.
had at this point? I mean, almost every team on the grid has had reliability issues other than Ferrari and maybe Alpine. I think
Yep.
Alpine's the only
That's what
other
I mean.
team that hasn't had any real reliability issues. And I think that, and then you look at all the crashes we had between qualifying, practice, and now the race at Monaco. The regulation does not fit a track like Monaco, which scares me for later races in the season because Monaco is not the only slow pace track that you have to have grip and downforce on. And we see that the lack of downforce made this track so dangerous that they go, we're not going to have active aero. And everybody was upset about it. But imagine if we had. It would have been a nightmare. We would have had more accidents, I'm willing to bet.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, and I think it's a good thing the FIA did that. But I also think that it was probably the most entertaining Monaco race we've seen for a
Oh,
while.
1000%.
Because normally people want it. Well, I'm surprised there's not a petition of getting it removed, because a lot of people don't like it. It's boring. But F1 won't get rid of it. It's a multi-million multi-million dollar pound track for
Yeah.
sponsorship. You know, the stars go there. It's just incredible, and the scenery is like. I was watching some of it yesterday, and the scenery was just fantastic. Over the harbour, you just can't get rid of it. Yeah, great to extend it, but they can't due to health and safety. There's no way to extend it. So they've done something, changed it a little bit by removing the arrow and then doing the 2-stop mandatory. To change it, because we know that the hards will go to the bloody end. You pit on lap 4 and they'd go near enough
Forever.
probably 74 laps. So and it's just historical. Do you know what I mean? And it really does. Like when you watch the qualifying and you watch the POVs on board, the guys they are racing on the edge. Every single lap is on the edge.
And I
How
think
close they get to the wall. It's incredible.
also, and
Incredible
this
to
might be
watch.
a little different for us because of sim racing, so the technicality that can go into this is if you sit
It's
back
the same.
and
It's the same in sim racing. You need to drive it on the edge, otherwise you're not going to get a fast time.
it's insane to try to do if people don't understand the technicality of Monaco, go get you a sim rig, hop on there, and try to run it with any kind of pace. It is
Or message
absolutely
Niall.
insane. And sitting back and watching these guys do it lap after lap without putting it in a wall, it's for me, it's so much fun to watch because it's like, who's gonna bin it? Who's gonna end up in a wall? Like, what's gonna happen? Because it's literally 1 second everything is great, and the next second you're in a wall, and it happens that fast at Monaco. And
Or
when you
message Niall.
do what?
Or message Niall.
Oh yeah, right. It's just like you blink, one mistake has happened, and there's no way to recover it. You look at, I mean, a prime example of this is FP1 with Hajar's accident. A slight mistake, he couldn't save it because there wasn't enough track or time. It's just that quick. So I
Yep.
think it should stay on the track because it's entertaining if you're looking at it from a technical aspect. No, the fights aren't the same, but just watching the pure talent it takes to drive that track the way they do is insane.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Um, Also, shout out, I guess you could say, and hype for Fernando Alonso. He finished 11th place. That Aston Martin almost got in the points. That's
They did.
insane.
They got the point.
Oh wait, that's right, because
They
he
got the
moved
point.
up. That's right. So,
Yeah,
you
got the
know,
point.
Aston Martin is finally on the board. That I forgot to update my notes after the penalties came through. Um, yeah, like Fernando finally got the car in the points, and when this season started, it's like, oh, Aston Martin's not going to be near the points until next season. Well, we're what 6 races in, and now he's in the points. This team has came so far, or they're 7 races in now. This team has come so far, and it's kind of exciting to see this and wonder what's going to happen come Abu Dhabi. Like, how much development is going to be made by then? And you have somebody like Nui that's driving that innovation for this car to make it better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. I think that 100%. I think they've done a fantastic job. They've worked at it. They've not taken the finger off the pulse. They've got serious issues. They've decided to change their manufacturer, their power unit to Honda. I'm surprised they didn't have a chat with Red Bull before they did that. They had a good power unit last year. Fernando was doing well. Stroll never does well anyway. But yeah,
I wouldn't
I
say
think
that, but most of the time, yeah, no.
no, no, he's shit. You just need to get rid of him. You just need to get rid of
He
him.
just needs to go do endurance racing.
It's it's just Sargent and Latifi all over again, isn't it?
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, sort of,
it's
yeah.
just like so many capable drivers of being in that car, and it is just a waste. I'm sorry to say, if anyone's listening to this, even if the Stroll family are listening to this, man,
That'd be awesome. Please
just get your
follow.
son in, just get your son into IndyCar, mate. Seriously, and stop messing around and give someone else the opportunity.
Yeah,
Because
I could.
Fernando must get so frustrated. Like, seriously. Like, every time, oh, he's on the wall, or he's doing this, or he's doing that. And it's like, oh, for God's sake.
Or he's three
You know,
miles
because you want
back.
that reliability. You want that reliability with your teammate. You know, you want to be able to rely on your teammate to help you. And like, for instance, going off a little bit of topic, but the Williams last night, right? I thought they did a fantastic job. How they were switching it around. You know, they did put Albon in under a little bit of pressure though, for Sainz, but that worked out a treat. Unfortunately, it didn't work out a treat because Sainz DNF. But
That
they were
also
both
wasn't
in the
his fault.
points. They were both P9, P10. Well, they were both P9 and P10, you
Yeah,
know, and they were working together, you know, and that car is overweight like Big Macs. Do you know what I mean? It's not, it's, it's like someone's put on 20 pounds. Do you know
yeah,
what I mean? It's not right. And James Vales has said so many times in Drive to Survive in his interviews, he wants to take Williams to the top. Well, you're in at the top at the moment because your car's overweight, doesn't have the speed,
yeah.
and you're battling the likes of Haas, Audi, and Aston. You
And,
know, that's
and
where you're at.
and you have the inner issues that they're having that have come out last week, and it doesn't help them fix
Yep.
that car because their
Nope.
attention's divided.
Agree.
Now, I will say,
Yeah.
while we're on the topic of Williams, their saving grace is the fact that Signs came out in the media day Thursday and said, I have no intention of leaving Williams. I see my future here, at least for a little while, which I thought he would be getting the heck out of Dodge and go to a different team because that car is so atrociously bad. And with all the stuff that's been coming out. And, like I said, Signs may have his consistency issues, but for a team like Williams, he has a mind like no other driver. And he can help them develop that
I love
car
time.
better than any other driver on that grid, I'm pretty sure. Other than maybe Max.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's
And Russell.
just
I think Russell's got a lot of knowledge.
I don't I honestly think Signs is better at it than Russell. And I think that is their saving grace. I said it last year that I thought Signs would end up being the better driver for the team than Albon. He didn't have the best season last year, but he was also adjusting to the car. We have them on equal footing this year, and he's looked a lot better than Albon. All Albon's wanted to do is cry and complain that the car isn't what he needs instead of adjusting to the car. Sure, Signs
Yeah.
complains about it, but he tries to adjust and drive what he has. And I think that makes Signs more valuable for them, and they need to thank their lucky stars that he is staying to help them.
Yeah. I've got to go. I will be back on. I've just got to attend a meeting. So if you're back on, I'll jump in. If not, then I'll catch up with you soon.
It has been nice talking to you about this.
Always, mate. Take care. Look after yourself, and I'll jump back on if you're there.
Yes, I'll talk to you later.
See you, man.
All right, so we'll finish this up. We don't have too much left to talk about here. Like I just mentioned, while we're still talking Signs, he was having a great race today, or yes, today at Monaco. He's saying yesterday because he is in a different time zone, but he comes out, he puts the car in an amazing place, been putting the car in places that it shouldn't be in, and just unfortunate. George backed up the pack on the restart, and it was a tight squeeze going through the hairpin. Holt got into him. Stuff happens. It's Monaco. Goes right down the road just a little bit. Starts to turn to go down to the tunnel, and then him and Colapinto collide. Ends up spinning Signs around, and it's a DNF. So it's one of those situations. Had a great race, had a great plan, and crap just happens. Um, like I said, I want to cover this also real quick with George. Um, George came into the season as the favorite for the title and had a bad weekend all the way around yet again. He qualified sixth, which was, the end of Q3, he was nearly half a second off of Kimi. And there was points where he was almost a second off of Kimi. And then he didn't have a bad start, but wasn't even quick enough to get around Hadjar, who couldn't really effectively use first gear. And you would have thought he would have been able to get around him in a couple different spots because he would have had more power to get out of the corner. He would have had more power because the turbo would have been spooled up more. For those that don't understand how that works, your RPMs are at a certain level, it makes the turbo work at a certain degree. Well, if you're going through a corner that needs you to be in first gear and you're having to go through it in second gear, your turbo is not going to be spooled up enough to actually launch out of the corner. So I don't understand how George couldn't get around him. Then finally, he finished 14th. And I mean, it's not solely on him. He got a drive-through penalty that should have been avoided. But at the same time, it's just his pace compared to Kimi was abysmal. He was nowhere near Kimi. And I just at this point feel like there's a reason why Toto was questioning if George could be the guy, and we're starting to see it. I think that he cannot perform when it is needed, quite frankly. One race, maybe. Two races, okay. Since Australia, what has he really done? I mean, he hasn't really done much since Australia. Yeah, he took second place, I think, at China, but he was a mile off of Kimi. And it's just at what point is it George is not the guy? And it's a matter of, can he accept being a number two? Because I think Kimi's going to be the new number one, point blank. He's going to be the new number one for Mercedes, and George is either going to have to get over it or go find somewhere else to race because he's just not it. And I know that's going to upset a lot of George fans, and I'm sorry. That's just what it looks like. If we're not going to give him the excuses that he always wants to use, it's simply that. But with that being said, we have had a great discussion, I feel like, tonight, and we will take our leave for the night. Again, if you want to talk with me, if you want to talk with SJ, he's also in my server. If you want to talk with the whole community and have fun with us, just hop over in Discord. The link is on Twitch. It's on YouTube. It's on Twitter. Come hang out with us. Have fun with us. If you want to ask questions, go ahead. If you're new to F1, it's a perfect place to learn. No judgment going on. You can ask whatever question you need to ask. And there's several others that might even have the same questions. If you are an experienced fan of F1, feel free to come in. There's several of us that have been watching F1 for years. I mean, we did a whole segment a few episodes back on our favorite historic races, and I think one race went as far back as like 1996, I think, with Monaco actually. I went as far back as like 2011 for Canada as my favorite. So like we got a group for everybody. Come join us. Follow us on Twitch. Follow us on TikTok. Follow us on or subscribe to us on YouTube. We have a great time. We have great discussions. It's all enjoyed to have you here. Without a community, there is no podcast. So I appreciate each and every one of y'all. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you next week. And I will have a fun topic. Don't know yet what it is, but we'll have something good for you. See y'all next time.